Buenos días. Es un gusto
Good morning.
saludarles en este jueves de Aprende Más con la entidad
Glad to
mexicana de
meet you in
acreditación.
Aprende
El
Más
webinar de hoy
with
aborda
the
el sistema
EMA or
SQF de
EMA,
acreditación
and
de
we'll talk
marca y
about
creatividad de alimentos.
SQF
Y para
and
ello es
accreditation
una
for food
responsabilidad
safety.
grande.
And in order to
Gigi,
discuss this, we have
nos
Gigi
facilita
Vita,
el difícil
the
reto
Senior
de
Vice
observación de
President
calidad
and
entre
Chief
participantes Gigi
Evaluator
es
for
representante de SQF
food
en México
safety
y
and a
una de las
representative
principales
of
entidades
SQF in
encargadas de
Mexico, and
realizar
Marco
la
Andrade,
certificación de la entidad mexicana
the
de acreditación.
head of accreditation of the
Daremos
Mexican
inicio con la
accreditation entity, or
presentación
EMA.
a cargo de Gigi
We'll
Vita,
hear
vicepresidenta
the
senior
first
y
presentation by
especialista
Gigi
de
Vita,
observación de
the
investigación en
Senior Vice
alimentos
President and
SQF.
Assessment Head of Food
Gigi
Safety.
tiene amplia
Gigi
experiencia en
has a
accreditación
broad
internacional.
experience
Ha
in
liderado
the
iniciativas con
food
marcas
industry.
líderes
She
en
has led
organizaciones
several
internacionales y
initiatives
países.
within
Desde el
national and
inicio de
global
su carrera como
institutions, and
delegada
she's headed
corporativa
the
elegida
commercial
más grande del
strategy
país,
for
México
the
Alianza por la
greatest
Vida,
initiative
impulsando
of
la eliminación y la
Greater
certificación
Farmers of America,
productos
and
estratégicos y
she's worked with
asociaciones
strategic partners and
es un
different
servicio
industry
eficiente y
associations.
comprometedor,
She
gracias a
has
su equipo de
established
marketing
an
y a
innovative
su
culture
apoyo en
through a
el
marketing
fortalecimiento
focus
de
on the
procesos.
development of new products
Gigi
throughout
pasó
the
más de
company.
8 años
Gigi spent
trabajando
over
ocupando varios
8 years
puestos líderes
in different
desde
positions as
marketing,
leader,
operaciones,
heading
ventas,
marketing,
gestión
branding,
de categorías.
income management,
Asimismo,
and
ha
category
ocupado
management
importantes cargos en empresas de bienes de consumo,
charges, and she has
empaquetados
headed
y
several consumption
alimentos,
good companies
Nabisco,
such
Campbell
as
Soup,
Nabisco,
Nestlé
Campbell
y
Soup,
Procter & Gamble.
Nestle, and Procter and Gamble, among
Hoy se
others.
encuentra y nos hablará sobre el programa
She will
SQF.
be talking
Bienvenida
to us
Gigi, le
about the
escuchamos.
SQF system, and welcome, Gigi, and you have the floor. You're muted.
Yes. Hello and welcome to all of you. I am delighted to be here today and to join this team and this webinar. And I am really honored, and I do want to thank Luis, who is my colleague who will also be helping me present today. And I also would like to thank Isabel Lopez for including me and the offer to be present and participate. So thank you very much. As you heard, I've been in the food industry my whole professional career. I have worked for these large consumer packaged goods companies and have had many different experiences, both domestically and globally. And I have brought that experience to SQFI. I joined the team at SQFI 2.5 years ago. And in the process of spending time with the team, as well as our global partners, I have learned a great deal about food safety and its importance. And I would like to share some of that with you today. A little bit more in terms of the role that both Luis and I have is that we want to continue to secure the global food supply chain. And in my role specifically, I look after all of the different components of our business, whether it's the technical side of things or the codes as we refer to them. On the marketing front, and we have developed a pretty extensive marketing program and outreach to our global partners. We have a whole series of folks that spend time looking after data platforms and other IT, information technology systems. We have a finance organization, as probably all of you do, to keep us all on track. And I'm very, very fortunate to have this terrific team to support all the efforts of SQFI. As you probably all have experienced, COVID created a lot of challenges and opportunities. And at SQFI, we have been able to be flexible and nimble and offer some new and different programs, things that we didn't have in the past. And Luis is going to spend some time talking more specifically about our programming and some of the things that we have done and added to maintain the integrity of the SQF program globally. So right now I'm going to take a pause and I will get into some slides and talk a little bit further about our program. Thank you. So as I said, I would like to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about the SQF product line and the programs and how we administer our particular solution for food safety. So the SQF program is administered by SQFI. As I said, the entity is the Safe Quality Food Institute, and all of our programs are called SQF. And it's an integrated management system that we offer around the world. And in our mission and vision, the most important thing that we do is to deliver solutions to secure the global food safety and quality supply chain. And we often refer to our product lineup, and I'll use the phrase that we use, from farm to fork, because we certify throughout the entire supply chain, del campo a la mesa. So from the beginning on the farms and the growers and all of the different industries that lead us through the supply chain, SQF has a certification program for every part of the industry. SQF is part of a larger organization called FMI, and it is the Food Industry Association. It was rebranded about 2 years ago. FMI was referred to as the Food Marketing Institute, so many of you probably remember that name. But inside of FMI, which was has been around for 40 years and has been the voice of food retailing, wholesalers, producers, all the different entities that provide food within the supply chain. It's a large organization. Many additional parts of our organization include some partners from Latin America, specifically ANTAD and ALAS. So we're lucky to have a lot of great partners to share our work at FMI. What you see here are some logos of our members at FMI. Many of these retailers, I'm sure you recognize. And there are, in addition to food retailers, we have online providers that have joined the organization, and they receive the same type of scrutiny as well as all of our retail partners to keep making sure that their programs are certified and that they're keeping the food supply safe throughout their supply chain. SQF has had a very long history, beginning in 1994. It began in Australia. So we have evolved over the years. As you can see, there is a timeline with some specific events in our history. In 2003, FMI purchased SQFI and brought it into the association family. And we are also a member, as many of you know, of GFSI. And GFSI benchmarks food safety standards like SQF so that they meet the global standards. And so we're very fortunate to be recognized by GFSI and the organizations that are part of GFSI. Also, we continue to update and stay current with all food safety trends and the needs of our customers. And so every 3 years, approximately, we take the time to update the code and mirror the standards that GFSI has provided. And so you see here in the timeline, as I said, about every 3 years. The most recent edition is edition 9, which was released late last year in October of 2020. So our relationship with Emma started a few years ago as well. And again, another timeline that shows you how our two organizations have been working together. So the initial contacts were in 2017, and Emma was accredited to the SQF standard. And then we continue to develop the relationship with Emma. And today is a terrific example of that, having the opportunity to speak with all of you about SQF. And as we move forward, we will continue to build our partnership and our relationship and grow the food safety certification businesses together. Latin America is a very important part of the SQF portfolio. We have worked to develop our brand in Latin America. We continue to evolve. Currently, we have 675 certifications, with Mexico being the largest geography where SQF has its presence. We also have folks like Luis on the ground in Brazil and in Colombia. And we're also looking to grow other parts of Latin America, specifically Guatemala and Costa Rica, and some of the other places where we do not currently have a large presence, but we will continue to spend our time and marketing efforts to build awareness for our brand and continue to grow. So as I mentioned, last year, we had the release of Edition 9, which is the most updated food safety code that we have on the market today. And you can see examples of the code on the left side of the screen. In terms of the distribution within the different business sectors, it's probably no surprise that manufacturing has the largest percentage of our certificates. In addition to manufacturing, as a part of Edition 9, we broke out some specific business sectors of manufacturing to highlight the growing need and the pieces of those businesses that needs more food safety attention. So if you look, you can see that 12% of the business is in the meat sector. And this year, we've spent time, and Luis, as well as his colleagues, have worked to develop the awareness of SQF within the meat sector. And I would like to acknowledge the work Luis has done, as well as Anatif. We have presented, I think we did this in November, to that organization, and we continue to look for webinar opportunities such as this one to be able to talk more about our brands and our building the awareness globally. Before I leave this slide, I do want to call out that we have other growing pieces of our business, specifically within storage and distribution, and also food packaging. So we have initiated some efforts to continue to develop those particular codes internationally. And then finally, I want to mention that we continue to grow our brand every year. Currently, we have 10,000 certified sites in 40 countries and 5 continents. And we're very proud of that. SQF had started, as I mentioned, in Australia and has grown in significance in North America. But the real opportunity and the pleasure that we have is to extend our business into Latin America and Asia Pacific and continue to grow our business as the food safety needs increase globally. So I think I'm going to end there, and I'm going to turn it over to Luis, my colleague, who's going to talk a little more specifically about our program and some of the opportunities. But thank you again for including me. I'm really appreciative of this opportunity. Luis?
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Espero que todos tengamos la posibilidad.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope we all will have a chance to look over the information that Gigi has kindly shared with us. And we're really happy to have her with us today because she is really the highest authority within the SQF Institute. So I'm just going to just briefly comment on some topics that might be of greater relevance to our audience, specifically regarding the requirements of the SQF code in this 9th edition. Before doing that, it is extremely important to point out, or to mention rather, our strategic partners in the region. This is really the way in which we join hands in order to further our industry. This just proves that we have a competent group behind us as regards the certification activities. And Emma has allowed us to further the presence of SQF in Mexico. And I'd like to also acknowledge the work of the auditors in Mexico. Now, just to tell you that the webpage of SQF offers all the opportunity you need to comply with the accreditation process. There you will find the different criteria for accreditations that EMA offers to the different entities in Mexico. There you see the different mentions of ISO standards and the requirements that have been adapted to this new edition, the 9th edition of SQF. But these are relevant because this allows us to include more professionals on food safety in Mexico. And we need the work of all these reviewers. So SQF also has specific guidelines for that purpose. This allows us to now have a platform of service providers and auditors and certifiers. And Mexico, as the first country in which these initiatives were furthered, you can see that we have a high percentage, but we also have our counterparts in Central America, and we're strengthening our presence in South America. It is important to mention that these auditors are competent in almost all the sectors of the food sector covered by SQF. And as Gigi mentioned, these go from the farm to the fork, to the table of the consumer, going through, of course, or including retail sellers and food services in the food chain. And we are also including new modules, such as Module 18, which has the second rating in greenhouse products. Mexico has a good rating here. And this SQF process can merge with the different industries and different services. So SQF organizes training events in order to train new individuals that may become auditors so that we can strengthen this very important branch of our industry. As Gigi mentioned, SQF is an integrated management system for food safety globally recognized by the GFSI, and our regulatory documents may be found in documented formats, which are our codes. And we have the 3 programs, the fundamentals of SQF. We have the food safety, focusing also on safe production. But we have these bases that establish the minimum requirements for the production of safe foods. And this hopefully will link this to a greater level of recognition. These are acknowledged by GFSI in the Global Market Program, as many of you may know, and they are designed for micro and small companies that are also joined or linked to the food chain. So the food safety is a program that is recognized globally by GFSI, and this allows foods to be certified and also to have some tools at our disposal to control quality. Now, the different categories have evolved. We've had structural changes in order to make our codes more practical and more accessible, but there have been some technical changes within the feedback we get from our users. We attempt to make these improvements, but also based upon the changes required by the GFSI. Now, let me show you very quickly what are the SQF codes. We have the primary codes in yellow, which are geared to the agricultural sector, and specifically in the farming sector, we have a specific module for protected agriculture, everything that has to do with greenhouses, macro and micro tunnels, and manufacturing codes have been also divided into groups. For the livestock industry, we have the meat products that this sector provides also services to the production of pet food and other articles, but the manufacturing process is the most complex one, the one that covers most of the food manufacturing, thermal processes, sterilized processes, everything that has to do with the food we can find in the market. SQF has now devoted a code for manufacturing of dietary supplements, a category that is growing in all of Latin America, specifically in Mexico and Colombia, and the service codes for storage and distribution centers, as well as for the manufacturing of packaging elements. This is the code that is known as the summit of these code for food safety. It has to do with productivity, cost reduction, investment return, quality control, etc. And this, as an independent code, may be applied regardless of whether or not you have a food safety code implemented prior to this one. We also have codes for retail sale, which is a food service code that is now becoming popular in restaurants, hotels and catering industries, and of course for micro and small companies. Now, the design of the code is more practical. If you want a specific content, you may find it. You may have the administrative part, you have the requirements of the system, and the system requirements are going to be always divided into two: the commitment of management and the cultural part regarding food safety within a package of requirements, which are called the elements of the system, which used to be known as Module 2, and the supplementary modules, in which depending on the module you want, you will have a different numbering system. So these supplementary modes refer to good practices and requirements that need to be implemented depending on the industry at hand. And the appendixes are supplementary documents that try to strengthen the structure of each code so that you don't have to skip from one document to another. In one single code, you'll find all your solutions. For those of you who are already familiar with the SQF codes, let me just remind you that there are some important changes in the structure of these codes. At some point, the elements of the system are still 9 fundamental requirements, and the management commitment is the most relevant still. But aside from the commitment of management in which we talk about food safety, well, there's something that is not quite new, but there's mention made about the requirements that we need to comply with regarding GFSI in a separate section. We need the commitment of top management, of those responsible and certified sites under SQF should have that level of involvement in these processes, and that they should also participate with those in charge of SQF or SQF practitioners. We require 2 per site so that they may have a fully supported and documented system. In control and registry of documents, well, this is the tool that we all use in order to be able to prove consistency and compliance regarding the implementation of food safety and quality. And we will continue to strengthen this topic through different actions regarding suppliers, contracts, production of components in per contract or inbound processes. All that will be found in the development of products. Now, our food safety system is still strengthened by the hazard plan, and this is also strengthened by the Codex Alimentarius that entails the same 12 steps as before, but now the update to the 2020 update of the Codex also establishes the analysis of hazard points and control points. And now the verification of the system basically entails making sure that we are doing what we committed to do. Traceability and crisis management are always topics that go hand in hand because of the recall of products. And these are also implemented during a crisis, regardless of the size of the crisis, but they are always related to food safety, to topics that are relevant, food defense in case of intentional tampering, and food fraud. We've read publications in different specialized media in Latin America and in other regions of our planet. We sadly know that food fraud is becoming quite relevant, not just because of the lack of integrity in the food chain supply, but because of the dangers that are associated to us regarding foods. Now, the allergenic management is also important. It is now included in the SQF code, and training. Training is very important. In food safety, training is one of the most relevant elements in order to guarantee food safety in general. Now, as regards good practices, well, there are changes, of course, when we move a plant to a different location. We always try to understand this from the perspective of the production side, of the production practices in the farm, in the livestock farm, in the aquaculture farm, etc. But we'll always have opportunities to go over and review locations. We'll also look at the operating procedures in the plant, the well-being and hygiene of the staff, of all those who are in direct contact with the product in the processing line, the quality of the water, some inputs such as water, ice, or air. We'll also look at this in the primary sector. Reception, storage, and transportation are also relevant, and the separation of functions is also important. Here we control the way in which we produce food and the way in which we handle incidents in order to be able to handle waste. Some of these are worth some money, some of them are valuable waste that may have a value for other processes. We've talked about slaughterhouses in the meat industry. Well, the waste may be used for pet food production. And for these, we need specific guidelines for the control of these type of resources. And this certification may be used at a wider scale. We can benefit from it. And there are different production sites that are documented in almost all SQF codes. And this is an alternative for those who supply farm products through different producers. For example, an avocado packaging company that gets products from thousands of avocado farms. Well, they may implement a food safety guideline in which the processing plant may oversee the processes involved in each of the steps. And here we have an equation on screen through which the auditor may audit the whole system for this primary supply system. And this points to the importance of the auditing process in these sites that has to be more profitable and more significant. And this multi-site program, it becomes more interesting.
More than 40 systems are used in more than 40 countries, and we hope we can do it in Mexico as well, and finding tangible benefits and examples that I have here. Some changes that we have for those of you who already have SQF certification. In the section A, which has to do with the management of the system implementation, some changes can be relevant. For example, major nonconformities or important nonconformities are now receiving a score of 5 instead of 10. This is not an open system for everybody to have nonconformities. We just balance it more, since if there are no minor nonconformities, major nonconformities could have been the problem of not getting the certification. And with this, the auditors can better assess the performance of the systems with better flexibility and practical elements for corrective actions when they see the need to assess these major nonconformities. We have also eliminated the initial auditing. We go directly to the site plant auditing. The documents are reviewed directly at the plant or on the site. The auditors will invest 80% of the time in the production site, in the processing line, to make sure that the documentary system is actually being implemented. Some activities may be carried out remotely when we have some site auditings. But it's important to point this out because COVID-19, as Gigi said, placed us all in a risk perspective, how to maintain the operation, maintain the supervision and surveillance of a management system. So remote auditing systems enable us to carry out activities minimizing the risk of facing difficulties in the labor sector, or the invitation that have to be made to auditors to visit the facilities of SQF that has defined guidelines on how to develop these remote auditing activities, and you will find them in the codes as well as in SQF website. And finally, a list of follow-up on what to do when a site is suspended or an auditing it fails to an audit. We could say, well, it is over, you have to start again from scratch. Well, actually, SQF has tried, due to the pandemic, to define a solution criteria when we don't have all the resources available, we don't have all the capacity to serve a certification or authentication auditing, to work together with the customers in order to determine which are the steps they have to follow. With respect to technical changes in the code, we always speak about the 9 out of 9, the 9 changes of edition number 9. And I told you something about the safety culture. This is nothing new for SQF, but it is new because now there is a specific requirement speaking about safety culture. And there are 2 points here interesting. One, how will the companies do to demonstrate that their employees are actively participating and proactively participating in designing controls and activities carried out to maintain process safety? And also, how do we do for employees to participate in the solution of problems that have to do with safety, and how are the decision made within their responsibilities, making decisions to help the company to solve the safety problems. Having two SQF practitioners per plant or per site is also something new. We already had a practitioner, or the SQF responsible party were already been assigned, but these two practitioners per site must meet the same levels of labor competences. The supervision of manufacturers by contract of the maquila industry, inbound industry, when they have a co-manufacturing process, we need to analyze the risk of this activity, analysis and review of the adequate content in labeling, not only because of specs, but also because of allergens, which are even more analyzed nowadays and more important in marketing at the national and international level of food. Requirement number 5 that has really been of interest, because it has to do that internal laboratories not necessarily receive the accreditation for ISO 17025, but rather that they need to align their processes, controls, methodology, assessments, inspections, and analysis to the requirements of ISO 17025. The idea is to professionalize this department called internal analysis and sampling laboratories, where the activities carried out will have a technical scientific support. We can say that the sampling should include methods based on statistics, using random numbers tables, or in inspections to be carried out according to inspection standards, and in analysis that they follow all the sampling guidelines. Whenever they are external laboratories, we will try to make sure that these external laboratories provide services when they are accredited, especially if they are accredited before EMA. That could be interesting to prove that level of compliance. With respect to training that the laboratory staff requires is also an important part. We are now moving also to the area of improving environmental monitoring controls and processes, not only contact surface and tools, but also the atmosphere, the environment of the processing area. Also, storaging and distribution requirements for animal food and the quality of water in production systems. Fine. What can we use as additional resources? And this is the last part of my presentation, to understand that the SQF certification process is a cycle that repeats, and it is necessary for us to strengthen each one of the steps each time we have an audit, where we need to have all the knowledge to record the company in the database, maintain this registration update, to get prepared for the audit, plan it with the recertification agency and body, to understand that this code is not only made up of sections A and B, but it also includes several free tools, access tools, where you can always find information that is accessible for everybody and free. Now we have an interface in Spanish as well, so it makes this process of looking for information in SQF very practical. I also want to remind you that we have a Portuguese interface for the Brazilian market and other Portuguese-speaking countries, where we are replicating the same information of SQF in its original version in English. You'll find the codes there. You can be able to download them for free. All the different elements and the auditing bodies are available there. Something that is really helping us here is that we have videos in Spanish showing success stories in each one of the areas where SQF has experience in the food industry in Latin America. You will soon find videos in Portuguese as well. The registration process that is very competitive for all the participants in the food industry that are involved in SQF. The cost is $350, for example, for medium or small size businesses, which is rather affordable. And at the level of the sales, this cost percentage can vary, but it is still interesting. SQF auditing process is where you can find it. You need to get prepared to speak with the certification body that has been selected. Audits today last 2 days in average, and certification bodies have to determine how many days are necessary to complete a well executed auditing. The auditing report will take some 10 days, and 30 days later, you will get the results of the audit so you can maintain the certification successfully. The selection of the certification body is important as well. We need to look for them, to approach them, to assess which are the advantages and benefits of working with WAR or another. We have 16 certification bodies working in SQF in Latin America, and you will always have the benefit of working with anybody that will meet your needs. Our internet website is sqfi.com, where all these resources and tools are available for you for free. And we invite you for next November 17th, you will join us in the first regional SQF seminar for Latin America. It will be a bilingual event, Spanish and Portuguese. The intention is to have participation from different specialists, experts, members of the food industry, auditors, certification bodies, consultants, and of course, we have the pleasure, we'll be very happy if you join us. We were a lot in the past, but now we have neighbors everywhere and offices in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, China, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, and Luis Alberto Cruz is still in Mexico and Central America. We are in the social media. Look for us, LinkedIn, Facebook, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much, Luis and Gigi, for your presentations today. As we can see on the screen, you will be able to find our next webinars and all the recordings we have made in the Aprende YouTube channel. And you can also write down all your questions so we can answer them alive or later on to our email aprendamas@ema.fh.mx. All of our webinars will be shown in the YouTube channel where you are connected right now, and we will be able to share them there, and you can share them with your colleagues, family, and friends. I also want to invite you to learn about our training courses to be trained online. These are the dates we have planned for the month of October. You can check all the details and your registration, www.ema.org.mx, where you can do all this registration in a fast and rapid manner, as well as the payment. So now the pandemic continues in many of the states, so this is a great opportunity to keep on growing and being trained. And now we will continue with our agenda. We have our next speaker, Mario Andrade, who is a manager of EMA certification bodies. He's an industrial engineer and has experience of more than 8 years at this entity. He's in charge of assessing evaluation and assessment and accreditation processes in conformity assessment steps of certification bodies, products, persons, and greenhouse effect together with ISO 17021, 17065, 17024, and 17065 standards. Likewise, he develops technical documents in certification and accreditation of quality for certification bodies. He also develops improvements to the accreditation and assessment element support for all leading assessors and experts in the list of assessors of EMA. He's also in charge of carrying out assessment as an assessor to participate in the APAC. Today, he is part of the International Forum for Accreditation of the Manager of Quality System for the period 2021-2024. Mario, you have the floor. Welcome. Thank you so much, Laura. It is a pleasure to share this webinar with Gigi as well as with Luis. Going directly to the subject matter and speaking about what accreditation is in food, whenever we are going to consume a product or a service, the majority of the times we must make sure that it is reliable. And a way of making sure that this is met is through the conformity assessment bodies, which are in charge of verifying that these products or services are appropriate to their use through a test, a calibration, an inspection made by an inspection unit, or a certification issued by a certification body. And what does it support? The certification and conformity. And this is an accreditation, which is an impartial process with the purpose of assessing the technical competence, as Gigi and Luis mentioned it, in the SQF code, and making sure that these assessment bodies are present and represented in all the assessment verification process or the issuance of a report by a laboratory. Next, we will see which are the four main pillars part of the quality infrastructure to have safe food. First, metrology. What is metrology? It is a science of measurement where we cannot improve, we will not guarantee the way it is measured, with the purpose of making sure that the measurement is the right one. On the other hand, standardization is defining the rules through a Mexican official standard, code, guideline, or regulation which must be complied with. On the other hand, we have conformity assessment, which is a level of compliance that is met through laboratories unit or certification body that is accredited by an accreditation entity such as EMA, and accreditation finally, which covers these three elements to recognize through a third party that it is an accreditation entity guaranteeing compliance of standardization methodology and conformity assessment involved in all of these processes. In the next slide, we will see what is accreditation. Accreditation is recognizing technical competence and reliability of calibration laboratories or testing laboratories, as well as product certification bodies and inspection units. It is also important to emphasize that accreditation is a tool that is completely independent and solid that supports us in safeguarding the health, not only ours, persons, but also the livestock or the materials that are safe, safety and security at home and at work, as well as maintaining environmental care, meeting different standards. Likewise, after 22 years of career and experience that we have at EMA, we do have teams of technical collaborators who are professionals committed and who are continuously trained. Today, we have a staff of 140 collaborators and more than 1,250 assessors and technical experts in our list and technical experts of EMA in the different branches. And one of the most important ones is food safety. And as part of accreditation, a basic point is recognition of technical competence. And thus, we have four basic pillars. The first one is to have a well-calibrated equipment. What is this? It's to define a reliable measurement, having an equipment that will guarantee precision and accuracy. Likewise, the conformity assessment body should have trained staff in all the process to be implemented, not only in knowing about the code or the standard, but also the assessment process from the beginning until the last document is issued. Also, these bodies should have the appropriate facilities, not only to make sure that the equipment is maintained in optimal conditions, but also to safeguard all the information and all the records of the assessment being done in order to have traceability at the moment of assessment or audit. And finally, these same bodies should have procedures that are implemented to the letter to guarantee that if more than two persons participate, they are always doing the things in exactly the same way and in a standardized manner. Next, we'll see one of the core points of accreditation, which is reliability. In order to make sure that we have reliability, we have three important factors: to have ethics, impartiality, and confidentiality. By EMA, we have policies and procedures that set forth all the safeguards applicable during accreditation process to be completely impartial, to make sure that we are not judge and party, to maintain confidentiality of all the data, guaranteeing that information that is reviewed is only for purposes of assessment and having a report. Later on, we will see that in being part of the supply chain in food, different tests, calibrations, and verifications are made even of greenhouse effect gases and inspection of all the certification throughout the entire chain of supply. In the first stage, we can see different productions, agricultural, livestock, or fishing, where we could have laboratories involved in animal health or vegetable health. We also have a food industry in preparation, manufacturing, or packaging, where we can have the participation of a certified company in the scope of ISO 22000 ensures the safety and quality. In marketing or sale, as you can see in the slide, we have distribution or manipulation, where there are inspection units implemented, such as transportation, making sure that they meet all the requirements to guarantee that the product will reach our destination in the appropriate manner. And finally, we as consumers at our homes or the moment we go to a restaurant, we must make sure that the product meets all the appropriate specification or that the restaurant has been certified or recognized with a distinctive AH or Moderniza issued by an inspection unit. With this and the next slide, we will see what is the definition and how each one of the conformity assessment bodies are involved. The first one, a test, which is done. According to ISO 17000, a testing laboratory will make the determination of one or more characteristics of a product or a specific item to be tested, while in calibration will help us have the different methodological elements of the instrument that will be used in food. On the other hand, speaking about inspection units, what is their main function? Likewise, and through this unit, there is an eye inspection in a given moment in time, such as in the case of Standard 051 that defines which are the requirements in the labeling in products and food. And the side of certification was the purpose of it. Observe through audits, after doing a revision, that the compliance with established requirements are being met, defined through a management system such as food safety of a process or product such as SQF code, or even the certification of people by meeting the 19011 standard. With this, it's really important to underscore the area of international recognition through the different accreditation systems that we assess at EMA. You can see here that we have 8 standards, different standards under which you can be accredited. 7 is from the family of the 17,000 standards, like the 17025 that accredits testing and calibration laboratories. 17024 standard, as I mentioned before, are the certification entities for persons, 17020 inspection units, 17043 and 17034 accrediting the aptitude testing suppliers and reference materials. The area of certification bodies, we have 2 divisions. On the side of 17021, Part 1, accrediting certification bodies in management systems, such as quality management systems, environmental safety, or even energy, and product certification organisms that must meet the 17065 standards, such as those bodies that are accredited under the SQF program. And at the end of the 15189 is not part of the family of the 17,000. It is a very important accreditation system after the COVID pandemic, accrediting clinical laboratories and blood banks. In the next slide, we are pointing out that after these 22 years of experience in EMA, from the moment we had the support from the Ministry of Economy, SECOFI was called before, and all the standardizing bodies of the Ministry of Labor, Communication and Transportation. And besides of all this endorsement, we work day after day with many of these regulatory authorities, because regardless of their endorsement, they also issue Mexican standards, which are assessed together so we can cooperate and offer the appropriate service to our customers and users through conformity assessment bodies that are accredited. It is really important to point out, as I mentioned before, to have international recognition. EMA has all the recognition internationally as well as regionally. And due to the geographic region, we have the recognition in the Americas by Inter-American Accreditation Corporation, ILAC, and by APAC, the Asia Pacific Accreditation Corporation. We also have the recognition of the two highest bodies of accreditation. On the one hand, ILAC, which is International Cooperation for Accreditation, grouping all the laboratories and inspection units, and IAF, which is International Accreditation Forum, which groups all systems accreditation bodies, also for products, persons, or even certification bodies for greenhouse gases. It is important to work with these cooperations, ensuring compliance with all the requirements and strengthening with the participation of work groups, participation in assemblies. Several of the members of EMA collaborators are active participants in this fora in order to have internal feedback and bring all this information to all of our participants to improve all the process of assessment. And we can see all the importance of all this chain of assessment of conformity. And this chain guarantees that conformity assessment is of great importance, having regional, international recognitions, because these corporations issue different criteria, such as mandatory documents for certification bodies, or in the P series issued by traceability policies applicable to laboratories and inspection units. So according to this, if I want a product that is safe, that will guarantee health and protection of consumer, must meet certain standards, such as the Mexican official norm. These standards must be assessed by conformity assessment bodies, such as a laboratory or certification unit. And these bodies will guarantee a certification like that of EMA. EMA is also subject to periodical assessments because it must meet the standard 17011 and follow all the requirements established in international fora such as IAF or ILAC. And next slide, we can see throughout these 22 years, we have had more 6,800 accreditation issues by EMA in different scopes. Specifically, speaking about food, we'll see the next examples that we have in each one of the different accreditation systems. In laboratories, we have 84 laboratories accredited in agricultural health and also 194 for food. Now, going specifically, what do laboratories accredit in food? They carry out tests of processed food with determine the characteristics, whether physical, chemical, or microbiological of processed food. While in agricultural safety, we have tests on field products, such as tests of presence of clenbuterol in carcasses. We also have laboratories for animal health, where we assess conformity with any legal positions, where we determine pork fever or mad cow fever, which was common years ago, according to their analysis, and avoid that this is disseminated. In vegetable safety, we determine that some plagues are not disseminated, eradicating some fungi to be eradicated in this region.
Likewise, we have accreditations issued by inspection entities such as visual reviews, and we have 10 for animal health and the rest for plant health. Also, we have all accreditations issued for certification entities. We have approximately 70 accreditations under different programs, under different schemes, such as, for example, the 1722,000 standard for organic products. This is a law regulated by Senacica. We have 9 entities in good agricultural practices. We have 11 entities for good livestock practices as concerns livestock, and we have 2 entities that are accredited by SQF for Primus GFS, and we have also for systems of contamination risk reduction, and 2 for responsible entity for agricultural companies at the national level. Now, the risk reduction on contamination risk reduction systems, we have everything that is obtained under optimum conditions to guarantee there is no contamination. And as regards good agriculture, good livestock practices, we make sure that the livestock is healthy through adequate feeding, that the quality of the water they consume is adequate, as well as the control of the waste. We also have the Mexico Supreme Quality Seal that guarantees that they comply with certain characteristics as regards health and sanitation. Another very well-known program is the certification through ISO 22000. And this standard guarantees food safety throughout the whole of the food chain from beginning to end. And a very important program which takes as a basis ISO 22000, guarantees that this is a system that is based on the analysis of hazards and critical points regarding control of food. Likewise, we have other programs such as SQF that has been widely discussed in this webinar. And this is a system that manages safety and the quality of foods based on the analysis of dangers and control. We also have the Global GAP program geared to a certification, which, as the rest of programs, covers food safety and traceability. One of the most important elements here is that it guarantees the well-being of the workers and the animals. And last but not least, one of the programs that is part of the World Initiative on Food Safety is the Primus GFS program. This also guarantees manufacturing elements and the pre and post-production practices in agriculture and everything that has to do with the supply chain. Also, at the local level, we have 2 important programs. The first one is the one for organic products, which guarantees products that comply with the safety and security. It also generates trust and mainly credibility in the consumer regarding the products they are acquiring by this seal. And the last one is the DEAR logo, which ensures that labor practices are adequate, that it's free of child labor, harassment, and other labor-related guarantees. This is one of the most popular programs after the free trade agreement was signed. And so GFSI is the World Initiative of Food Safety that encompasses consumers, experts, regional experts, around the world in order to contribute to food safety by providing trust so that all the food that we may acquire in a supermarket may comply with the objectives that we're seeking and making sure that it will not affect our health. Out of the 6 programs that this initiative entails, in EMA, we already have 4 different programs and we have certification bodies that are accredited. It is especially important to mention FSSC 22000 that was recognized by the International Accreditation Body. And we hope that in the next few years, these programs will be recognized as SQF and SQFI. And these have been recognized by International Accreditation Fund. And here I would like to underscore that it is important for these to be recognized by the other significant forums such as BRGS and IFS, because this means that the products we get to our home are compliant with all the prior requirements. And in order to conclude my presentation, the role of EMA is really essential in conformity assessment. Through accreditation, EMA ensures that certification bodies, laboratories, and inspection units operate through standards, codes, and regulations through which we assess competence and integrity of each of these entities. And in this way, as I have said, we make sure that the consumer and the market may rest assured that the entities have analyzed these products and that the products that we're purchasing or acquiring meet the requirements for which they were initially created. Because of all this, EMA plays a very significant role. It guarantees that all foods that are guaranteed by entities that have been tested by a lab or inspected by an inspection unit have been assessed by a system that guarantees the whole of the food chain, as in this case, the SQF program. And with this, I conclude my presentation. I'd like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mario, for this excellent presentation. And before we go to the Q&A session, I would like to invite you to use PagEMA, which is a payment system that allows you to pay for your accreditation services. Let's look at this very brief video. All you need to do is to log in through www.ema pagos en línea. Then you could just key in the information, you validate the information, and you can pay through Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. And that's it. It's quite easy and quite simple to use this app. It is a very user-friendly platform, as you can see, and it's really safe to use. Okay, now let's move on to our Q&A session. The first question is addressed to Luis. Luis, could you please tell us how many certification levels are part of SQF and which one is the most adequate one for our organizations? Well, thank you, Laura. The SQF levels have now shifted and are now known as programs. Up to the 7th edition of SQF, we still had levels 1, 2, 3. And these were geared to continuous improvement of for food safety. But now we have the basics of SQF, which is a program where you can initiate the implementation of a system This is recognized by the Global Initiative of Food Safety, a program known as Global Markets, which is its equivalent, and that even exceeds the expectations. And level 2, as was known up to edition 7, is now known as the Food Safety Code, and it's made up by the implementation of the hazard standard to guarantee food safety in the primary sector, manufacturing, packaging, retail sales, food service, and in all the categories of the food sector. And the level 3 is now known as the SQF quality. This program is geared to companies that have a mature system and that are looking to solve efficiency, return on investment, productivity, etc. But we always look at 3 scenarios. We may have a company that wants to initiate a safety program that has no specific demands on certification or request of certification by the customers. And we usually recommend that they start with this one. The companies that want to have a recognized certification at the local or international level, and that also has the support of audits accredited by EMA, for example, since these certification entities are available. Well, these companies that look for these certifications on safety would need to request a certification under the safety program. And if the company wants to really make sure that their performance is correct, that their production is the right one, if the costs are acceptable, and if their profitability and efficiency is sufficient to meet the needs of the company as regards the growth and the benefit for stakeholders, we always recommend them to go to the quality program. So these 3 programs really meet the needs of the companies in different scenarios. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Luis. Mario, what is the accreditation process for a certification entity under this scheme? Okay, well, the most important part is that all entities that are part of this program need to have a management system aligned to the standard 17025 and to meet all the requirements of that standard, as well as all those requirements that are applicable by the accreditation units and the requirements applicable according to IAF at the international level. Another important point, aside from standard 17065, is that you need to comply with the SQF programs to the letter. The auditors of these entities must be validated or accredited by systems of SQF, and that is something we evaluate ourselves. If they don't, then that would be a finding. That would be marked as a finding. So, as Luis mentioned, those organizations that are interested in this accreditation need to make sure that they comply with each of the requirements for the certification scheme, as well as of the accreditation scheme, such as standard 17065. Now, for Luis, what is the difference between SQF and other certification programs for food safety? Well, I have to acknowledge that the other certification schemes that are recognized by GFSI also comply with the requirements for services and different management systems. But this also allows the purchasers to have different options. And that is the way it works. Some codes are geared, or some schemes are worked to the primary sector, some are geared to manufacturing, some are geared to services, and maybe the characteristics that distinguishes SQF from the rest is that we have a total and absolute coverage for the whole food supply chain. We can implement SQF programs in livestock farms, in aquaculture farms, in agricultural farms, in the sites for the collection and capture of animal species to be processed. We can implement an SQF process in a very small plant or in a very big plant. We can implement SQF in a micro company or a small company or in a corporate uh, entity that has locations all over the world. We can implement SQF for packaging material in centers of distribution, restaurants, convenience stores, etc. So SQF allows the whole language of safety, and the whole of the supply chain may be administered under one single place, and you so that you won't have to go jump from one system to another, depending on your vendor or your business. And Gigi mentioned this when she spoke at first. She said that SQF is a certification program that really goes from the field to the table, to the fork. So SQF really is a unique program because of its quality assessment. No other certification scheme looks at performance and productive performance, or that really looks at this company to have an adequate investment return, be it private or public. So we have seen that many large corporations that quote in the stock exchange are certified by SQF precisely because they see the benefits of this link between their expectations and the expectations of their stakeholders when they wish to improve or increase the value of the company. So these are the aspects that have really made SQF one of the essential elements in the whole food industry. Mario. Okay, the certification entity can only be certified with SQF, or can it also be under other schemes? Well, they may request certification under the scope that they wish, but depending on that scope, then SQF is adequate for 17075, and we also know that SQF is part of the accreditation under 17065, but should they want accreditation on just the standard on food safety, then that's under a different standard, which is 17021. But any entity interested may require accreditation under any scope they wish, and those that are already accredited under a certain scope may ask for an extension onto a different program. That is interesting. Luis, how many countries and accreditation entities have this scheme? Well, we have really taken advantage of the fact that accreditation entities that participate in the IAF have a regional coverage, continental coverage, or global coverage. And this is something I mentioned in my presentation. SQF is based upon 4 accreditation entities, and EMA is one of them. And through the licensing scheme, it allows operation up to the place where the entity requires. We can issue local and international licenses. There are 35 certification entities that have been able to comply with and exceed this demand, and they have been succeeded in going through the evidence and tests that are required for the accreditation process. And this allows us to continue strengthening credibility and trust, as well as the professionalism of the services offered through the accredited entities or bodies. So for us, it is really a matter of pride to say that we have this international recognition, because this is a solid and sound structure based upon an accredited structure, which allows us to just cover the whole of the world. Okay, the last question for Mario. In order to be recognized by SQF, Does it need to be a signatory of IAF? Accreditation bodies should be part of these fora because it is important to have international recognition. SQF so far is not recognized by International Accreditation Forum, as I had said, but it is very important to have those standards and to meet those requirements in order to be able to meet one of the applicable requirements of the IAF. So that is why we invite those bodies, after hearing the details provided by Gigi and Luis, to broaden their participation in this program. We have OCT and Fiance who are already doing this, but we offer an open invitation. SQF is open to provide us with support in case of any doubts. And we're at your service too to clarify any questions you may have regarding the accreditation process. It is important to have that recognition of the IAF. Okay, excellent. Now back to Luis. How do I make sure that the eggs, fruits, and vegetables that I purchase are have been certified? Well, companies, sites, or plants that have the certification of the quality code, they are able to use the stamp, the seal of quality, and this quality seal allows them to be differentiated in the market. We can go to a supermarket today and find products that are already bearing this stamped seal that reads SQF. It is a stamped seal that allows consumers to acknowledge or recognize these products. And for those who do not have the quality code, but who want to be known as companies certified under SQF, SQF allows them to use the logo of the institute, which are just the letters SQF, in their publicity, in their web pages, in their business cards. And we do not allow them to use the logo in the product itself. And for that, they need to comply with the quality certification. But SQF has a platform that is called Repositrack, and that is where we publicize all the companies and plants that are certified under SQF. So if a consumer wants to know and make sure that if the brands he's purchasing, and proudly, I can say many, many commercial, global, and local brands are certified by SQF. Well, he can go there and make sure that the product he has bought is backed by the certification. Okay, last question for you, Luis. I have a service that has been certified for pest control. Can I handle a service that is not certified for these purposes, for pest control? Well, SQF does not force the whole of your supply chain to be certified. We know that there are different levels of demands and different levels of resources. So if we were to demand this, it would be quite a challenge to be able to certify the whole of the service and supply chain. You'd probably run out of suppliers and services. But what is clear under SQF is that the responsibility of the design and the management and control of pests in the site is the responsibility of the site that is being certified, with or without a service provider, with or without a company that has the certification. And under Mexican legislation, in this very specific case, the Mexican legislation allows companies to have their own pest control as long as they comply with the applicable standards. And this has to do with training, licenses, and permits that are issued at the local level to do so for chemical handling, chemical material handling, etc. So it is not mandatory to work with service providers or input provider that are certified, but the company has to establish the conditions under which it will provide these services. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your answers, Luis and Mario. Now we will go to our final messages. And for that, I'll give the floor to Gigi Vita so that you can share with us your final comments.
Gracias. Ha sido un placer participar en esta presentación y gracias a Isabel López y su equipo en la EMA. Saludos.
Perfecto, Gigi. Muchas gracias.
Excellent, Gigi. Thank you. That was a perfect Spanish. Now we'll go on to Maribel, our executive director, who is going to share with us a few words, closing words.
Gigi, thank you for your participation. Muchas gracias, Luis, Mario.
Thank you, Luis, Mario. Ever since 2017, as Gigi mentioned at the beginning, we have been working together. We're extremely happy about this. We're moving ahead. And as Mario and Luis said, we have already 2 bodies that have been accredited. And these 2 just keep on pushing us every day to include more programs. SQF is one of the brands with the greatest recognition in the agro-vet sector, agro-food sector. And as you've already said, it was not easy for Emma to achieve this. It took a lot of work, but we're extremely happy to keep moving on, to keep making progress. And we hope that in the next few years, Luis, we'll have more programs and to keep on supporting this brand that is so essential in this agricultural sector to open up the door to our products in other countries. So thank you all for this excellent webinar, for clarifying the road ahead and to let us know all the new things that we can participate in. Thank you to the organizers and have a good day. Thank you, Maribel, for your message. And just to conclude, let me invite you to our next upcoming webinar on October 14th, and it is entitled, and we'll see it on screen shortly. It is called Management and Disposal of Binophiles, Polychlorate Binophiles in Mexico. This is based on the NOM 133 of Semanat, is going to be addressed to 3rd-tier hospitals, airports, universities, and water handling entities and others. And we'll meet at 10 a.m. on October 14th. So this is all from us. Thank you. Have a great day. See you soon.
Gracias.